Hey everybody, it's Scarlett Cyanide
and Jordan.
And welcome back to another episode of Scarlett Cyanide's Sit and Sip, the show where we grab a seat, take a sip, and get into all things RuPaul's Drag Race. Now on today's episode, we're going to be talking about RuPaul's Drag Race, Season 17, Episode 9, Heavens to Betsey, which is of course celebrating the iconic fashion designer, punk activist, trans activist, Betsey Johnson. Yes, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Yay. Overall, how did you enjoy this challenge today?
It was really fun. It was nice after 2 weeks of big name things like Snatch Game and Rusical, both pretty tent poles of every season, stuff people look forward to. It was nice to have a little breather with a design challenge, a really fun one.
It was.
A really fun challenge with Betsey Johnson.
Yeah, I know, this is the third design challenge of this season, and you weren't with me when talking about these, but they did the Monopoly challenge, where they had to make looks based off different, Monopoly properties and things, and then, the colors associated.
Interesting.
It was, but actually it was pretty sickening.
Okay, cool.
And then they had the Sea Sickening Ball, which... that was 3 looks, but the very last look, they had to make that out of unconventional materials.
I did watch that episode even if I wasn't on the show yet.
Perfect, yeah. So this episode, with this design challenge, I thought they went about it a perfect way because, if we're going to have a third design challenge for the season, it needs to be a little special. And I think because it was about Betsey Johnson, and this episode was, we're going to talk about this more, but... this episode was such a celebration of Betsey. It was just, she was just the sweetest.
Yeah.
It was so good. So this was a really special and a really fun design challenge, like you said.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into all of that, I want to give a quick thank you to Bongo Jones, who sent us a YouTube thanks tip last week. So thank you so much, Bongo Jones.
Thank you so much, Bongo.
Yes, that was so lovely. If you want to support the channel with a tip, which is always appreciated and never expected, you can do all that with all of these lovely options here. I also wanted to give a huge shout out to some of our brand new Seated and Sipping channel members because, Jordan, we offer channel memberships.
We do. It's awesome.
Yes, we do. And of course, with channel memberships, you get access to all of our videos before they come out to the public. You also get access to really cool, fun Scarlett emojis. We're going to have to make some Jordan emojis, by the way, for you, and some cool custom badges. And then of course you get to hang out with us every single week to do a live watch along, which once again we did this past week with some of the members, and it was just once again so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yes, we have nice little kiki chats. So once again, a big hello and thank you to our brand new Seated and Sipping members. Welcome to the family. Ooh, welcome to the family, son. Welcome to the family. Dia and David, Courtney, CF, and by the way, y'all, I can only see people's usernames, so if these are not your names, I apologize, but just know that it's, your username essentially that I'm using. Finn and James, Amy, Curtis, and Ian. So thanks so much. All right, Jordan, we're about to do our thing, so what are you sipping on today?
Just coffee and water. Keeping it easy.
Keeping it easy, keeping it simple.
What about you?
Same in my...
coffee and water.
Yeah, coffee and water. And I think this is Star Wars. Well, we're going to be drinking coffee out of our Rey Mysterio mugs. Y'all let us know what you're sipping on down in the comments. With all that being said, Jordan, let's grab a seat and take a sip and get into it. Absolutely. We get back into the workroom. Sam has just clinched her spot in the very, very top, because now we have 3 girls with 2 wins apiece. And I don't know what compelled her to do this. I think Sam just really is having a lot of fun.
She clearly is, and actually we'll be touching on a lot of that this episode.
Definitely, yes. Yeah. Because she decides to stand up and give a little pageant speech or something like that, or also / warning to the other girls. Yeah, it was fun. You know, there was this little like teaser of drama, right, that we saw in the trailer for this episode last week. And I thought that this is where the girls were actually going to be. There was going to be some sort of kerfuffle between Sam and Arrietty.
The next week on edit did make it seem like this is where the fight was going to be. Yeah. But it was just Sam talking a big game. But rightfully so. She had a pretty epic win last week.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible win.
She really, really did. It was, you know, still I think a lot of the girls may have been surprised, you know? So she's kind of cementing her, like, spot. Like, hey, I'm here. Watch out for me. I'm having fun now, so I can do anything. And this has really caused the girls that have been safe, like Jules and, well, you know, mainly Jules. And then, of course, we hear from Lydia. We hear from Lana and stuff, too. But the girls that have been just safe, they're really feeling the heat now.
Yeah.
And Jules has been, like, either in the top, basically in the top or so close to the top every single time.
Yeah.
So she's at this point, it's just like, what do I need to do to get a win? RuPaul comes in and they do the reading challenge, which I love a good reading challenge.
I'm always interested to see what the sunglasses are going to look like. And I love, for all the budget of this show, that they do all look like they're from the Goodwill.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. And honestly, I think this particular pair of reading glasses has been on past seasons. So they're not even updating the bin. They're just like grabbing the same ones.
It might have been on past seasons. It's also been at Goodwill's. Literally, I've seen those exact glasses at the one less than half a mile from here.
That is so funny.
Which was extra funny to me.
You know, next time we see those, we should grab them.
Part of me really wanted to say, could we go to the Goodwill before we film real quick so I can see if they're still there?
Well, we'll just have to maybe take a trip and report back to see if we can find them.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, back on track. Sorry.
But Suzie wins the reading challenge. What did you think overall of the reading challenge? Did you enjoy it? Like, we haven't ever talked about a reading challenge before, so I really want to like hear your take on it.
I really did enjoy it. Now, I you know me, I love the really just cutting to the quick jokes. Mm-hmm. I love the brutal stuff. There wasn't a lot of that, unfortunately. In some cases, like Arrietty, just because she was trying her best, but her jokes weren't funny.
The sass that Jules gave back.
Like Jules threw right back. It wasn't even her fault. In fact, she laughed like crazy when Jules did that. She was like, it's just, we're having fun.
Yeah.
But the Lexi's Marsha P. Johnson joke to Kori... That one, I was like, okay, that's brutal. And, I really enjoyed that.
Yes. Yeah, I thought, like, overall, actually, this was a pretty solid reading challenge. In years past, they have been very, very bad. And then in some years, it's like everybody's got, like, the best zinger. I think this was a nice mix of, like, obviously, we saw some people struggle. And then there was a lot of people that had good reads. You know, Suzie... Very much, I'm kind of guessing she probably overall won the reading challenge because it seemed like she had the most funny and consistent reads, like, overall. Because I think we saw her deliver, like, 3 or 4.
She did, but she also, and this is not a bad thing necessarily, she also, as she does, she went really highbrow with a couple of those jokes. So while they worked... She was taking a real risk of, like, the room not knowing what she's talking about.
That's real. Yeah.
Which is a risk she often takes with a lot of the things that she does.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why the jokes landed, but I felt like they were just a little clunky. They're a little clunky, a little too much happening, not enough getting to the punchline, which is why when she won, I was a little surprised.
For me, kind of like you said, her jokes landed. Now, you know, there was nothing that was just like, oh my God, like, that's the read of a century or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I thought she did a good job just kind of letting loose and having a little bit more fun, because originally, you weren't here to talk about this, but Lexi Love deemed her captain of the Kumbaya committee, Suzie Toot, the captain of the Kumbaya committee.
You'll have to explain to me what that means.
So that means you can't read the girls without them getting upset and things like that. So I thought this was a good opportunity for Suzie just to like show herself as like a queen's queen.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
And not somebody who can dish it out but can't take it.
That part.
Gotcha.
Right. So Suzie wins the reading challenge, and Ru lets them know that they are doing a design challenge in honor and in the style of Betsey Johnson. So there were 3 overall different aesthetics and collections to choose from. And this included fabrics, accessories, trims, and kind of all things that went with each of these Betsey Johnson collections, which was grunge punk flapper.
Yes.
Betsey's prom, and my personal favorite, prenup. Which one of these fabric collections, like if you were going to be doing this challenge, which one of these would you have chosen for your fabrics?
The punk grunge flapper for sure.
Ooh, yeah.
The flapper part might be a little bit more of a challenge for me, but the other 2 parts I got.
Yeah, I know. Like that's you all day, every day down. I mean, I already said it was my favorite. I would have definitely picked the prenup category. I just loved the black and white. I loved how Betsey explained it, like all genders equal, but it was also a lot of flexibility in there, right? Because it was just kind of more neutral, like black and white stuff overall. The Betsey's prom, it was very 80s, heavily 80s inspired. So it was hot pinks and just bright colors, bows, tulle, and all of that.
Yeah.
The selection process for them to choose these fabrics was actually pretty funny, in my opinion. So Suzie gets to choose first because she won the reading challenge, and that was like the advantage that she won. And she chooses the punk grunge flapper, and no surprise there. They even RuPaul is like, oh, what spoke to you about this collection? Would it be the flapper part?
Yeah.
And Suzie picks Lydia actually next to choose the category. Lydia also decides to do the punk grunge flapper, and now Lydia can pick the next person.
Yeah, so she's going to pick Kori.
Yeah, exactly. You'd pick your wife, your boyfriend, your lover, your sister wife, like all of the different titles. But Lydia honestly kind of gives a little bit of a Scarlett moment in this moment. I felt a little seen. She forgets that Kori exists, I guess. And instead she gives it to Lexi because she just loves Lexi, and Lexi's been killing it. So she lets Lexi choose next. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. And then she did kind of seem to be like, oh, wait. Oh, God, I could have said Kori.
Literally, yeah.
She's like, oh, wait, hang on. I beefed that one.
Yes, her face crack that she did to herself was so funny. And then actually Kori does not get selected until low-key kind of towards the end. She's one of the last 2-3 girls to actually even get to choose, because then after this, the girls do get a little strategic, which I think is important because like I said, this is the 3rd design challenge. So there's already been 2 girls that have wins for design challenges, which is Arrietty and Sam Star. So I know specifically Arrietty gets skipped by at least one of her good Judys, and she's a little like, But I mean, ultimately, I think, at least for Arrietty, she's placed in I think the perfect category for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, or she gets to choose it, but she still gets exactly what was amazing for her, which is the prenup category.
Yeah.
So how it all shook out was we have Suzie, Jules Sparkles, and Lydia Butthole Kollins in the punk grunge flapper looks. The prom category, which RuPaul had some jokes about this, we have Lana, Onya, Nurve, and Kori King. And then in the prenup category, honestly, we have most of our fashion heavy hitters, which is Arrietty, Lexi Love, and Sam Star. Yeah. All right, so everybody has their groups. Everybody is getting their fabric. Honestly, when it comes to like workroom conversation and just things going on in the workroom, there's a few things going on. But I do have one upset moment though, which is Lexi. Lexi is, and she talks about it, but she's very emotional and she gets overwhelmed originally with the sewing challenge and she's crying and she's just kind of feeling like she's lacking direction. She's also struggling with the fact that she's been safe in all the other design challenges.
Yeah.
But I think a moment that really kind of picked up everybody's energy was when Betsey Johnson came in.
For sure.
And got to do the walkthroughs with them with RuPaul.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
That was great.
So overall, I thought just everything with Betsey Johnson was just so adorable and sweet and truly a celebration of her being an icon in the fashion industry, making her own rules, you know, and I feel like we actually got to learn just a bit more about Betsey Johnson, her inspirations, and the fact that she's always been an ally to our community. Now, the very, very first group were the prenup girls. So, of course, that's Sam Star, Arrietty, and Lexi Love. And overall, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway in this conversation was we learned that Betsey Johnson was the first fashion designer to ever book trans models to walk on the runway.
Yeah. I looked it up to find out like when she did that. I didn't find specific dates. I found in the 1970s. Wow. But back in the 1970s, she was already hiring trans models. Like she said, she felt like trans models could, like, really knew how to show off a garment.
Love that.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was so cool. And then we also saw that in 2014, and I think that's actually where some of these pictures were that they showed from.
Yeah.
But in 2014, she made headlines because she had trans models walking in the spring New York Fashion Week show.
Wow. Cool.
So, yeah. So that like made, you know, headlines back in 2014, which is very, very cool. Overall, though, I mean, these are our fashion girls up here. So going back to the walkthroughs, you know, everybody gets kind of like, oh, this is nice. You're on, you know, a good path forward. Lexi shows that she is going to be doing like her veil drape thing by this point. And pretty much everything that they talk about with Betsey, they end up executing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the next group to go up, so that's Suzie Toot, Lydia B. Kollins, and Jules Sparkles. This group, I will say, like, with Suzie and Lydia, they really weren't coming in trying to reinvent the wheel or do anything different than we've already seen them do.
Yeah.
Susie's look, I mean, she picked the inspiration look that's perfect for her aesthetic already. I think it allowed her to kind of stay in her comfort zone.
Yeah.
So when she said she wanted to do like a pretty spot on flapper look, I was not surprised.
Yeah. No, it made sense. But then she took the materials and the dress she ended up with while they were making their do-rag comments. She looked like she was in A Knight's Tale. She looked like she was just like a handmaid.
Giving you like Renaissance.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But like,
see that.
Like ironic modern Renaissance. Like, again, like something I feel like I'd see in A Knight's Tale.
Lydia, she was ultimately, in my opinion, given a warning by RuPaul because RuPaul said, oh, another slinky dress for the butthole or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I will say, like, when she showed the drawing, I'm like, oh, that's like literally what she's worn every runway.
Yeah.
So, no surprises there for me.
No.
Jules, though. So, already, when Jules showed her sketch, right away I'm like, work, yes. I see that as like actually being a real garment that Betsey Johnson would have made. And then the last group that went up, which was the group that ultimately struggled the most and had the most questionable designs drawn out, were Onya Nurve, Lana, and Kori King, of course, the prom girls. Now, when they first talked to Lana, I think Lana did a good job overall this challenge. And we'll talk about the final look. But they talked about how Lana was not able to go to her prom. Now with Onya, Nurve, and Kori King, I actually really liked both of their drawings. I think the original design concepts and their original direction were not the problem. What ended up being the problem for each of them was the execution of their looks.
I liked that they took this weird moment to, like, not weird, but it just felt a little out of nowhere, this moment to compliment Kori, and we got a little backstory that Kori went to school for animation and drawing, and which, absolutely, I could see it, especially in the color work, just in the short amount of time she had to do that drawing. It did strike me a little bit of, oh yeah, they're getting rid of her, because
we got to hear a little bit.
Just because I was reading into it, I got to share what it said to me. What it said to me is they were telling us she has something to fall back on.
And that won the reading challenge.
I was like, why else are they suddenly telling us what else Kori can do? Kori, I love you. I'm so sorry.
The drawing was lovely, though.
The drawing was amazing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the drawing was amazing. Now, while Kori's drawing was lovely, she does get a warning from Ru, though, that maybe don't use that silhouette because that's the silhouette that you always use. So then Kori essentially says, well, I'm not going to make this dress then. I'm going to make a long, elegant dress.
Version of the dress. Yeah.
Right. And we'll talk about if she accomplished that or not. Now, some key moments that I wanted to bring up in this workroom conversations that kind of came next. And as we saw the girls putting together their outfits and trying to figure things out, I feel like we actually learned a lot more for, honestly, the very first time, who really can sew and who really can't sew. Because I will say, I was actually shocked that all of a sudden, apparently now, Onya has no idea how to sew. She apparently doesn't know how to put together a garment. I was floored by that because in the Monopulence design category, which was once again them with fabric, Onya put together a gorgeous, beautiful, amazing look. Like, stunning. Like, literally a top scoring look. But then all of a sudden now, she's got no idea what she's doing. So, like, what happened?
Surprised to find out that Onya can't sew. Her looks have just been so fabulous, I thought for sure. But I saw her with that staple gun and maybe some glue. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense too. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Totally, yeah. Like, honestly, no shade at anybody that needs to staple anything or hot glue anything. Because if all of a sudden I had to do, like, a sewing challenge tomorrow, like, I could do the majority of it on the sewing machine. But guess what? She might be hot gluing some stuff on there, too. I mean, if you're not a master seamstress.
And I would just straight up accidentally break the machine because I've never learned how to use one.
Jules learns that she has sewn her velvet opposite direction, so she's almost got like this two-tone dress. I mean, there is a lot that goes into sewing that if you haven't sewn a lot or haven't had a lot of experience working with different fabrics, it's very easy to use a panel upside down, do a 4-way stretch like the wrong way, so it's stretching up and down and not side to side. Like, there's a lot of stuff you have to like think about. Now, Jules, while she struggled, ultimately made very, very good decisions, which when she felt like her look was looking a little bit too Flintstones couture, she decided to mix it up, and ultimately that was a very smart choice for her to like do all the patchwork fur fabric stuff. Now, some of the other girls, like we talked about, that were struggling, they did not make good choices. So, of course, Onya Nurve, she did not make good choices in just putting the outfit together, the bows, and we'll kind of talk about each one more.
And as I think I mentioned when we were watching, my biggest issue was the top bow, which just was too large, and anything that was good about the outfit was covered up.
Yeah. And then, of course, Miss Kori King, who said that she was going to not do a short dress, she was going to do a long dress. But by the time we saw her on the runway, she was back to a short dress.
Yeah.
And so, so short, she even called it a scoochy dress, which means you just have to scooch along, because if you actually walk, your whole...
Your whole stuff comes out.
Your whole, moment comes out. So, a long dress she did not make. Now, speaking of scoochy dresses, though, and panties, panty was the trend of the evening. So, overall, maybe I'll give my sip of the week to the panty, because we had many girls showing panties. Of course, Kori King, Lexi Love, but I mean, the woman of the hour, the woman whose name is on the building, RuPaul came out in probably the most slutastic dress that I have ever seen her wear, ever in the history of the show. She was coming out in a full pink sheer dress, literally showing you Brazilian bikini.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about each of these looks. We're going to just talk about them in the order that they came out. And the very, very first girl was Jules Sparkles, who was also the winner of the challenge.
Yeah, she ended up winning with this. What I liked about this versus her drawing was that she made the patchwork decision, because it was pretty close otherwise, but in her drawing, she stuck with just the kind of whatever that greenish, bluish. She stuck with that fur for everything. And I think that making it the patchwork is what made it a Betsey Johnson dress.
Oh yeah.
I think even Betsey Johnson, had it been just one tone, would have looked at it and been like, this is so close.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't have missed the grommets and everything that she loved. But she would have been like, there's just something not quite right. I just feel it. I feel like, the patchwork is definitely what put it over the top.
Definitely. Jules knew the assignment and fit the brief perfectly, which was to make a dress inspired by Betsey Johnson. So, Jewel did a perfect job of capturing the flapper part, but in a fabulous, gorgeous way. She gave you the grunge and the punk with, the mixed match fabrics. And then all of that grommet work, like you said, the grommets and the little, spikes and just different things, the body chain that she had on there, just everything was just so perfectly placed that it was just such a standout look. And she opened the runway.
Yeah.
So, it was a high standard to set.
It was a high bar that she set.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And she just looked gorgeous.
Oh my God, she looks so beautiful. There's something about that, look that is, winning this season overall, because remember when I told you when Onya was on the top? Very, similar party, similar vibe for the Monopulence that when Onya created.
Okay. I can see
Jules'
that.
dress. They were going to a similar party, I feel like.
I can see that.
Now, the next queen that came out was Lydia B. Kollins. And she gave you a very Lydia B. Kollins silhouette. It was giving you grunge flapper.
Yeah.
But, I don't think that this was a horrible look, but the judges ultimately called out a lot of fit issues.
Which it did have. Particularly in here and in here. You could see that the seams were not even holding together. And honestly, she could have leaned into that and done big open stitches with a larger thing, left it like that, and it would have looked totally punk.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have even needed to add that much to make that work. The thing that kept confusing me, because I still literally don't know what she was wearing. What is that thing she was wearing on the bottom layer that was on her face and on the rest of her body?
Oh.
That made it look like she had sores?
I think that was maybe just a rose print fabric, but she would make the face bikini. Yeah. Oh, you didn't enjoy that?
No. Because
what'd you think of Miss Suzie Toot, who was giving you, honestly, pretty, flapper on the nose, in my opinion?
Yeah. The hair definitely was working for me better than any other choices I thought she was going to make. Certainly the do-rag, better than that.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. It was very punk. I just don't know if it really encapsulated anything else.
Yeah, it didn't feel like super inspired for me. I think Suzie did a good job of making a well-constructed garment.
Yeah.
That overall fit the brief, but there wasn't anything that like really elevated it for me. And actually, I hated the hair. It's funny. So I'll actually put up who the hair reminds me of, but there's been a few girls from like season 2 and season 3 that hair like gives me like flashbacks to. So this was, I think Suzie deserved her safe placement overall.
That I would agree with.
Yeah.
Suzie,
but that was it.
Suzie didn't do anything to deserve to go home tonight, for sure.
Right. Next were the prom girls, and the very, very first girl that came out was our other bottom, because our bottoms of the week were the lovers.
The lovers.
The lovers were the bottoms. And so we had Lydia and then Kori. So Kori came out in her prom look, in her not long prom look dress. And it was a lot of the same issues and critiques that we always kind of have with Kori, which was, this is the same silhouette that you've always made, and construction and the finish was just a big ol' issue. And honestly, this was just a very boring, plain dress.
But also, like, just again, Kori was shooting to be safe, which is just like, you got to shoot higher than just being safe. Like safe is a good landing if you don't make it, but you got to shoot higher than safe, Kori. And because in a piece to camera, she herself couldn't get through a sentence where she was trying to say that her construction was on point. Yeah. She was saying it as a joke that she didn't even, couldn't get through the sentence. She knew that the construction was bad.
Yeah.
And that she was going to get clocked.
Yeah, I actually like that she said that. It's like she's shooting for safe. And I think that's what keeps happening, up and through this episode for her. And, I mean, ultimately, it was absolutely, in my opinion, her time to go home.
Absolutely.
The next prom look that came out was Onya in her pink bows. And also one of our bottom 3. Ultimately safe, but,
track record saved her for sure.
Oh, track record saved her for sure, because
she hadn't been killing it the past so many weeks.
Every week, yeah.
She might have been in real trouble tonight, because Lydia wasn't wrong saying that her outfit was better.
Oh, 1,000%.
As far as the bottoms go.
Yeah, no, Lydia's outfit absolutely was better. You're 100% right. This came down to track record, because Kori and Lydia have been a bottoming week over week over week, and Anya's been the top, or winning every week. So this was very warranted. If anybody's getting like a free pass, it was very deserved.
Absolutely.
Anya. Yeah. Because this dress was really rough. I mean, the judges kind of called it all out. And you called it all out, too. The bow placement was off. The hem was not a flattering length. Just overall, it was a potato.
Like she said, she got to learn her lengths.
She's got to learn her lengths. That was really funny.
I liked that a lot. I'm going to make sure to grab that and use that for stuff.
Right. Now, by far, the best of the pink prom looks was Lana's race look. And, I actually thought Lana did a pretty good job. I think this was really, really cute and adorable. And I thought it was very appropriate that she was the other safe.
You know what?
One of the other safe queens.
I don't like doing this, but I gotta say, I looked at Lana and I was looking for something to criticize. Mm-hmm. And I kept coming up blank, so I have to agree. I feel like Lana really nailed it this week.
Yeah, it was a good length. It was a good color. It was well executed. It was well put together. So overall, I think what all of the safe girls have in common, because the last safe girl was Sam Starr, who was part of the prenup group.
Yeah.
And Sam's look was also, it was very cute. It was very polished. no complaints, but I think why all the safe girls were safe was you did a good job constructing an outfit, but you didn't do anything like extra impressive beyond that, you know, and also they were very true to their own aesthetics and not necessarily giving you like Betsey down because Suzie's giving you flapper. Well, same as every week. Lana is giving you adorable, almost like baby doll, like runway. Very, very Lana. Yeah. And then Sam was, you know, her look was cute.
She was giving you like a Tiffany Madonna thing.
Very that.
So she was picking, you know, I think she thought if she picked an era in which Betsey was popular, that would qualify.
Yeah.
So I don't think she steered so far from the assignment that she should have been in trouble, but she was definitely just safe.
Yeah, and I mean, to that exact point, RuPaul actually brought it up a couple times, like, Betsey, you've literally already made this.
Yeah.
So, like, Sam has done a look that not only have we seen on Drag Race before, but Betsey Johnson's already, like, made that back in the 80s, like, for real.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, God, how funny would that be, though, if somebody, like, just wore something they already had and it turned out to be a Betsey Johnson dress?
Oh, right. Oh, my God, that'd be funny. All right, so our very last group, which I'm glad that they have these girls go last because overall this was the most solid and well put together group, were the prenup girls. So we already talked about Sam Starr's look a bit. Yeah. It was fine, but... you know, nothing. She wasn't going to win today. No. You know, she wasn't going to win today.
No, she was firmly safe. She was firmly safe.
Now, two standouts of the runway and our other top girls were Arrietty and Lexi Love.
Yes.
Arrietty went before Lexi because Lexi actually kind of closed out the show, which is pretty iconic. But Arrietty came out and oh my goodness. Once again, I'm like, this is Arrietty. Down, she constructed something that's just so ornate, so beautiful, so well done.
And it was especially funny towards the beginning when they were collecting up her fabric, and she's just like, I'm just gonna take all of it.
She's like, I'm just taking everything.
and it all made it to the outfit, but it was just gorgeous. I was very impressed by the nude illusion underneath,
oh my gosh,
and just
right?
how good it really was, but still very subtle. It wasn't showing you a lot because there was still so much going on.
Yeah. And then our very, very last runway look was, last but not least, was Lexi Love, giving you fabulous bride with a beautiful, opulent veil, and then like swimsuit, sexy, like almost like sugar baby.
But the veil came down like mid shin length. It was gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And then just popping out from underneath it was that vibrant, perfect rainbow hair.
Yeah, it was. She did once again a fantastic job of combining Lexi Love and Betsey Johnson. Yeah. And I really think that Jules and Lexi Love ultimately completed the brief the best, which was giving you fabulous, runway-worthy, well-constructed looks that were also like the perfect epitome of embracing and celebrating Betsey Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
If I get married again, I think I want to dress exactly the way Lexi Love was, because it was just so gorgeous.
I love that.
It was just so beautiful. I want to be able to pull off that wig the way she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't forget the very, very end of the runway show. We have to mention it because very Project Runway style, they have all the girls do like the final runway walk. Betsey gets to come out at the end and she does her famous split.
Yeah, she lets all the girls walk by and then she does the splits. She's, as much as this show's about her, she still didn't take the attention away from the girls. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
She still was making it about everybody. I love that.
Oh my gosh.
She's so much fun. She just had flip-flops on.
I know. Yeah, like little big, house shoes
like
on.
Big fuzzy ones, but still.
Well, she's 82 too.
She's 82, I know.
Ooh, I hope at 82 I'm still running around, wearing crazy clothes, doing splits.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. All right. So I think ultimately the judging today really made a lot of sense. And so for the safe girls, like we said, it's Lana and Suzie and Sam. I think that was all very appropriate. And like we said, their looks were safe. So go be safe.
Yeah.
Nothing too shocking there.
No, not really.
You know, it was funny though, because we did watch Untucked. And of course, besides for Betsey Johnson coming back, I actually there that had never been safe before, which were Suzie and Sam.
And Lana was literally showing them the lay of the land. Like y'all are new here, so let me show you where everything is.
Like you got to get a snack, you got to do this.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was really funny that just for, you know, because Sam's having fun now.
Yeah.
Just to do it. I loved the fake fight that Sam and Lana like staged for when the girls are coming in.
I adored that because they're like, oh, they're going to be coming back soon. We should be in the middle of a fight, like when they're coming back. Mm-hmm. And so then, they just launch into this fake fight, which at some point I was getting a little concerned. I was like, we forgot that we were pretending to fight, and now we're actually fighting.
Yeah, it's like, oops, now we're mad.
Oops, now we're mad. I thought we were pretending here.
But they did a really good job. That was so funny.
Oh yeah, and they dropped it. It didn't continue on.
No, but they had the girls going.
They did. Lexi was all turned up.
I know. Yeah, we actually throughout this episode, and this is something I kind of forgot to bring up before, but throughout this episode, we actually got to see that Lexi and Sam are very close.
Oh yeah, they love each other.
They love each other, and Sam loves Lexi so much, and they just go out of their way to like check on each other and uplift each other. Yeah. So I love that. I mean, they're definitely giving me final people energy.
Yeah.
So it was just great to see the sisterhood between those. Now, our top girls of the week were, no surprise here, Lexi Love, Arrietty, and Jules Sparkles. So Jules Sparkles ultimately gets that win. I think very much to the surprise of Lexi.
It was to my surprise, too, and Lexi was not happy.
That face crack was so iconic.
But, like...
It's so severe.
But it turned so quickly into a very recognizable look, which is the look of, all right, this is some BS. I'm done with this. And so I just really hope she's not feeling done with this.
Right. Yeah, we're going to have to see.
Just really hoping.
Yeah, we're going to have to see, like, next week when they come back, when we see them, like, come back into the workroom.
Yeah.
If there's any sort of exchange. So you also said that you were surprised that Jules won.
Yeah.
Just same as Lexi?
I really thought Lexi was going to take it. Not just because I thought Lexi's dress was a little better, but the way the judges were talking. Now, I know Betsey said to Jules, when I picture in my mind this particular collection, what I'm picturing is basically what you're wearing.
What you're wearing.
Now, that's a pretty high compliment, but the way they were heaping praise on Lexi and the fact that they had to go from Lexi back to Jules is why, definitely I would be mad.
Okay.
I would be mad because they used Lexi as a fake out.
Yeah.
Like they used Lexi's feelings as a fake out.
They sure, production is producing for sure. And, in the past, fans have absolutely been like, oh, production's trying to break this person. Production's trying to cause them to have a mental breakdown. And I
just don't want that to happen to Lexi.
I know, and because especially since she's already talked about that she just gets very emotional and she's been very stressed and annoyed that she's been being safe on the, design challenges in general. Also, speaking of production choice, just maybe not production choice, production choices. And not saying that I think Jules won because of a production choice, but now Jules is on the board.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
We have the 3 with 2 wins.
Yeah.
Lexi with 1 win and Jules with a win.
Nice.
Yes. Now, I completely see where you're coming at with like thinking Lexi was going to win and assuming thinking that Lexi should win. I'm really happy that Jules got a win. She has been my high but safe, robbed queen, girl that I love. throughout this whole season.
I do love Jewel Sparkles quite a bit, too.
I was so happy for her that she got a win, and I do think that her look was just, like, perfect, ready to go, no notes. They could have, like, started mass producing or whatever that outfit that day with no changes, and it would be a standout look.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to seeing where this can go between the girls, or where this is going to go between the girls.
Yes.
Especially without Kori going to be in the workroom. And as they said, it's going to be quiet. It's going to be quiet without Kori.
Yeah,
So they're going to need to fill that airspace.
Definitely. Yeah, now speaking of Kori, ultimately, like we said, Kori and Lydia, the lovers, end up lip syncing against each other. I mean, I think we definitely all saw this moment coming. Like, as soon as the love was announced, I'm like, oh, they're lip syncing against each other.
On the live chat, everybody was saying it from the beginning.
Yeah. Like, oh, are we ready for the lovers to lip sync today?
And while I agreed, just for the fun of it, I was watching in the episode to try to find where the story wasn't going in that direction, but it just too clearly was.
It really was.
It just too clearly was.
Especially when it was Onya in the bottom with them. It's like we already mentioned this, but the track record alone absolutely warrants Onya like a get out of jail free pass.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Korea.
Yeah.
Oh, Korea. That's a natural.
Yeah, Korea. I like that.
Oh my God, I redeemed myself from chlamydia.
The Legend of Korea.
Yeah, so Korea lip syncs to, what was the song that they lip synced to?
Kiss Me Deadly by Lita Ford.
Yes. And
every now and then there's songs I know.
You did right away. You're like, oh, this is Lita Ford. Like, you knew right away.
Yeah, every now and then there's songs I know.
I love that. This song I think was perfect for a lot of reasons. It was very, punk rock.
Yeah.
And punk rock adjacent, which gives you the Betsey, but also it's the lovers lip syncing. Yeah. And we got a kiss, all right.
It's like slightly above being mid-tempo, just enough that it's fun.
Yeah, very fun.
But like without being too fast, because punk can always go a little too fast to actually be a dancing thing sometimes if you're not careful.
That's true. It can look a little chaotic, a little messy.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah.
No, I feel like this was a perfect choice. And just with Betsey and with the stuff I learned about her, because I didn't know a lot about her before this episode, I looked her up online and learned some stuff about her. I was like, there's so many ways they could go if they're picking a song that's kind of in the theme of her. Mm-hmm. But I felt like this was a great choice. It was a very on-the-nose choice for what they were trying to get out of the girls.
Which was, we finally got to see it. The kiss cam is real.
Yeah.
Because we sure got a kiss. We almost got a whole lot more than a kiss. We got
Kori took her nose and bottom lip and was like it was very like, this is happening right now.
Kori ultimately is the one that goes home. Lydia is saved. I'm actually really surprised because we just saw a great lip sync out of Kori. And maybe it was the fact she was lip syncing against her lover. Maybe it was the song choice. There's a lot of things. But I think it just took Kori longer to like warm up and like get into the song than Lydia did. Lydia had a good idea of how she wanted to deliver the song, I think, from the beginning. Right. So we have talked about all of the looks, all of the workroom drama. It is time now, Jordan. Let's talk about our sip of the weeks and our spit of the weeks. So who is and this is actually, typically it's kind of had to be like this accumulative score, right? But this was a design challenge. So for me, I am going to be just like basing my sip and spit off of whose looks that I liked the best and whose looks I was like the most disappointed in.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to go first? Sip of the week?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, I'm going to go sip of the week with the winner, Jewel Sparkles. She's my sip of the week because overall she impressed me the most. She finally found a way to shine above the rest. I think she gave Betsey perfectly. It's also something that I personally would want to wear. And it was just finally her week, and I'm so happy for her. So Jewel Sparkles is my sip. Now, my spit of the week is normally always my sip of the week. My spit of the week was Onya Nurve. And let me tell you why. not only was, I think this obviously one of the worst looks. Like, hers and Kori were the worst. This is going to sound so shady, but I expected Kori's, honestly, not to be great. But how far and hard has Onya fallen in this challenge? Because although I love her, Onya is my spit of the week. What about you?
My sip of the week, easy, is definitely Lexi. I just was in love with that look. As I said, I literally want to wear it. Yeah. I just loved it so much. That. So definitely sip of the week is Lexi. Mm-hmm. And my spit of the week is going to be Suzie Toot. And that's just because upon really thinking about her outfit, it just was like, I don't know. Even a lazy punk look could be a lot more punk than that. And okay. I just, and the way the moment they said she was safe, she just went like that. Like, and that, I don't even care. I love when people do that. My criticism's not that. It's just, she was shooting for safe. She was just hoping that she was going to be safe with this look.
Yeah.
And I just thought it just wasn't very good.
That's real.
So spit of the week would be Suzie Toot.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want to hear all about who your sip of the weeks are and your spit of the weeks are in the comments below, and I'll have a pinned comment there that you can comment back directly. Now, next week, I am so excited. We have kind of like another legendary kind of stapley challenge. Every season there's either typically a roast challenge or a stand-up comedy challenge, you know, kind of the same thing. But this coming week, they're going to do the villains roast with some of our all-time favorite recent villains, Candy Muse, Plain Jane, and then one of my favorites of all time, Mistress Isabel Brooks. I'm so excited. All right, Jordan, let's share our final thoughts about this week and this week's episode. It's now time for At the End of the Day. So, Jordan, any final thoughts overall for this week?
At the end of the day, I just need these girls to stop shooting for being safe.
This is your warning.
Because there's been a lot of that. Suzie Toot shot for safe this week. She was lucky to get it. Kori was shooting for safe. She is going home. And in Untucked, I was happy to hear somebody who is really guilty of it talking about trying a little harder. But in Untucked, Lana promised that she's done shooting for safe. She's tired of being safe, and she's going to try harder. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that's true. I feel like she did step it up a little bit this week, but just a little bit.
Just a little bit. To your point, a lot of these safe girls, they could potentially really struggle next week. Because if you haven't been standing out and now it's time for another comedy challenge, ooh, that might be a little stressful. My at the end of the day is, at the end of the day, these girls need to do what Sam Starr did, the safe girls. They just need to loosen up and have fun.
Also, then real quick, because you reminded me about next week's challenge with the roast, I'm really looking at Sam Starr next week. Because she killed it last week. I feel like even if she was safe this week, she still continued to do pretty well. Now, next week is going to be a real test of, is this actually a new Sam?
Yeah, no, you're so right.
Because it's going to be a comedy challenge.
Right. And right off the top of my head, I feel like with Sam's upward trajectory, she could do really well next week. I'm expecting Onya to do really well because she's already just so quick-witted. Yeah. And now that Suzie has won the reading challenge, I'm hoping Suzie can bring it next week. Maybe Suzie can have a good week again. We'll have to see. All right. Well, you all, I would love to hear about who you think is going to do well next week. Did you agree with who won the Betsey Johnson challenge this week? Do you think the correct girl went home? Were the correct girls in the bottom? Give us your thoughts, feelings, and opinions down below in the comments. Jordan, it was so fabulous to have you again. So thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see everybody next time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back next week for a brand new episode of Scarlett Cyanide's Sit and Sip, talking about the Villains Roast. And until then, take care of yourselves, divas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. Was that rude?
No, I loved it. You should definitely keep that in.
I'm going to. Had big open sores.
Ooh,
I'm sorry.